Welcome to the President and CEO Focus on the Middle Market podcast series, where President and CEO founder Paul Stukel discusses middle market issues with business leaders from across the nation. Today, Paul speaks with Cindy Crotty, Executive Vice President at middle market lender KeyBank, about its recently issued Middle Market Business Sentiment Report and the optimism of middle market businesses today.
Obviously, there's a newfound optimism, or at least an increased optimism, I guess, that sort of flows through the results here. The one thing, and that seems to be consistent with a lot of other surveys and things like that that are more recent. One thing that does strike me, though, looking at first of all, while there's a general more optimism with respect to the economy, there's an awful lot of negatives too. Looking at the most recent numbers, I mean, there's still 41% that have a negative outlook, only compared to an 18% positive outlook for the U.S. economy. I would have expected something a little more in the red there, a little more positive sentiment. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree, but I guess I took some comfort in the fact that it was the trends are in our favor and things are turning a bit more positive. I still think a lot of it has to do with the political climate and just how we don't seem to be able to make a lot of headway there. This was taken right after the first of the year, after it appeared that we would get some sort of a budget agreement going, so I think that spiked some of the more positive view. But yeah, I still think there's some of that, and I'm not sure if their business owners are still sort of attributing the economic issues with healthcare issues and sort of rolling that all up into one big feeling about just the economy generally and the political climate. But clearly where they're closer to the situation and the issues, they're much more positive about their own businesses and even their states that they're operating in.
You mentioned the healthcare situation. It'll be interesting in the February report how the delay of Obamacare mandates for the middle market will impact people's attitudes, because I guess it's been pushed off to 2016. So there's a little bit of a reprieve there for the middle market, which I was pleased to see, frankly. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts the optimism as well. The acquisition information, again, we're seeing some similar things to what you're seeing in terms of people becoming a little bit more, if not aggressive, at least open to growth through acquisition. I think what struck me about your findings were that I was actually surprised that about the numbers for the last 6 months, the 42%. I didn't realize it was that high. Folks that had either completed a transaction or had strongly considered a transaction. That's actually higher than I would have expected. And to be honest with you, to a certain extent, the 25% that are extremely likely or very likely to do an acquisition seemed low to me. So in actuality, it almost looks like there's a lessening. Am I missing something, or is it the way it looks on paper?
No, I mean, that is what the results, the findings told us, and I would agree. Right. I was surprised so many had considered strongly or even completed one in the past 6 months. I guess the fact that almost 50%, though, are considering somewhat likely for the future, I think is a positive, and that certainly aligns with some of the activity, frankly, on the banking side that we're seeing. There's a lot more activity around mergers and acquisitions right now for us, and a lot more conversations. So, I think that goes along with a more positive outlook about their own businesses and where they're looking for growth.
In the detail of the data, did you see any particular industries or particular types of companies? Are there any sort of things that pop out to you in the detail in terms of who's more likely to do acquisitions, either by industry or size of company? Is there anything like that you noticed?
There was nothing that we could point to that would have had any statistical significance. And again, the sample size is fairly small. We're doing this on a monthly basis.
Right.
So believe me, we are looking. We're looking, for our own benefit here too. But no, there really wasn't. Yeah. It was fairly broad. It was surprisingly broad. That and again, it's considering and somewhat likely, very likely. So I saw that as people are taking the time now to think about these things more as they contemplate where they're looking for growth or, frankly, what they're going to do, longer term with their own businesses. It's a trend I think many of us have been watching, frankly, for 10 years, anticipating a lot more activity. And we did see the spike last year with some of the tax changes, which always spurs some of that. And then it sort of dropped off the first part of this past year. But the fact that, the latter part of this year, it seemed to have picked up a bit. And fortunately, looking forward, it looks like there might be some more of that activity. I see that as a positive.
Well, it's certainly a suggestion of optimism, that's for sure. I mean, the more people are thinking about it, that means it sort of reflects the optimism for their companies. So that's, you're right, that's a pretty positive sign. It was also heartening to see the 69% of companies indicating that they will add employees this year. That's pretty good news.
That was
given the situation. Yeah.
We saw that as a real positive. That was significant.
Have you run into? I've heard from various sources that there seems to be a talent shortage. It's finding qualified workers is becoming very, very difficult. It's a real inhibitor to growth. Have you, either through this survey or through just your own activities within the middle market, have you run into that, the sort of the dearth of skilled workers that people need to expand?
Yes, and that is something that I believe in the next survey we're going to take a little deeper dive on, because that is in my travels, conversations with business owners. We do hear that engineers, really skilled professionals, are very difficult to come by in the locations that they're needed. So there's relocation conversations going on to try to get the workers into the right places. And, of course, you can't do that for every level of worker. It's just not economically feasible. Out west, in some of the agricultural markets, finding good labor in those markets is not easy right now. So, and depending on the industry and the part of the country, there does seem to be an issue. And, I think as more of our clients and business owners are looking to expand through employment, adding employees, I think this will continue to get some conversation going about, what are we doing to make sure that people have the right skills that can be employed right now.
Yeah, it's a vexing thing, isn't it? Here we have this high unemployment rate and angst, and yet you can't find people that have the right skills. It's a challenge. It's a worrisome trend. It really is.
It is, because
companies can't expand if they don't have the people to do so. That's just not a good thing. But again, clearly the overall tone there is grow. 62% are planning to expand. The new facilities is down a little bit, but still 42% interested in new facilities. It's a pretty optimistic overview, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So we were very pleased, particularly at this set of data. The expansion and renovation piece up 5%. That was positive, and that's aligning with a lot of what we're seeing with our own clients, adding product lines and equipment to expand their capacity. So, I think most of these companies, because they have been so productive the last couple of years, have squeezed as much productivity out of existing plant and, frankly, out of their existing employees, then in order to grow now, they're going to have to hire and invest for future. So that's all good news.
Yeah, well, certainly good news for banks, for heaven's sake, because you got to finance
we
that
need
somehow,
some,
right?
don't we? Well, all these clients have lots of cash still sitting out there. So, that's the other big question.
Right.
Will they borrow or will they use their own? And that'll be another topic for us to explore with them in another survey.
Be sure to check back for future episodes of President and CEO's Focus on the Middle Market podcast series. Thanks for listening.